Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm Becky, and I'll be your host. And today we're going to be talking about something that I know a lot of people think about, breaking out of the 9 to 5. So we don't want you to be afraid to leave the 9 to 5. We think you're going to find life beyond it. And my guest, Lee Clark, is going to help us learn more about this because he has been through it. So, Lee, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Becky. Great to be here.
Great to have you here. Always love to get another perspective on this. And I know a lot of nomads have gone through this experience. A lot of people listening that are hoping to become digital nomads. We always love another perspective to figure out how we can do this. So, Lee, first of all, can you share a bit about your background and how you started your digital nomad journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So my digital nomad journey definitely probably started a lot later than probably most people. Um, it was during COVID, actually, that it really kind of started, I guess, shaping the where I am today. So back in 2021, a good friend of mine was going through a really rough breakup. He was in a long-term relationship and it really hit him hard. And I just kind of made the comment. I said, you know what, you should try and get as physically and emotionally away from her as possible. That might be good for just for your own mental health. And I said, you should go to Southeast Asia. You should go to Vietnam. And he kind of said, Vietnam, why Vietnam? And I've had many friends who have been there and said so many good things. I said, you know what, it's cost of living's pretty reasonable, and everyone I said they had the time of their life. And he just made the comment. He said, "If I go, will you come with me?" And I thought about it for 5 seconds, and I said, "You know what? I'm a single man. I have no dependents." And I said, "Sure, why not?" So it was actually really difficult to travel uh, at that time. All the borders were closed. So we couldn't go to Vietnam. Eventually, there was a special visa that Thailand had that he had found out about. And so we did some research, had to jump through a ton of loopholes just to even apply for the visa. And then to make a fairly long story short, eventually we ended up in Thailand. And when that happened, I just immediately fell in love with traveling. And unfortunately, I ended up losing actually several jobs during the COVID pandemic. I worked for a marketing agency. A lot of their clients panicked. They pulled back a lot of their marketing spend. And I essentially told myself, I said, you know what? I'm not going to let anyone else control where I can work, how I can work. And so I actually started my own business in 2022, partially because I wanted to have that freedom, that sense of freedom. So I'm now back in Thailand right now, and I have my company since 2022. So yeah, that's a short version of ultimately how I became a digital nomad.
Oh, well, congratulations on being able to break free and getting through all those hoops, which I'm sure we all remember how many there were at that time when you
Yeah.
first came to Thailand. How long had you been working in a cubicle and having like an office life? And where did you travel from,
Yeah.
by the way?
So I'm Canadian, and my background is all like client facing stuff. So I was doing software sales for 15 years, and you know, kind of transitioned into customer success work for the kind of final few years, I guess you could say. And yeah, so my whole life, like eventually one of the last few companies that I had worked for, they did have a remote policy. So I also kind of really enjoyed that. And I started to think about what I can do now. Unfortunately, that's a whole other topic. People generally don't like you to be living outside of the country for some pretty legit reasons. But yeah, I've been working in basically a cubicle, so to speak, for 20 years.
And you recommended your friend to go to Southeast Asia, but that was just something you
Yeah.
had heard from friends. But had you ever considered doing it yourself and trying that lifestyle before he invited you along?
No, not really. It was kind of like the perfect storm of things happening. I always was infatuated with travel, but I don't think I really believed it was possible. Maybe was more so. I feel looking back now, I don't think I allowed myself to be as maybe I don't know if ambitious is the right word, but maybe adventurous. I was comfortable. We'll put it that way. I had a pretty good job. I've lived a very privileged life. And so I feel like I just was comfortable. And then as I got older, I kind of thought, is this could I do better? Could I do more with my life? And so I think I kind of challenged myself because I would never really ask those questions. I was just comfortable kind of doing the same old thing over and over again. And then I kind of had an internal conversation with myself and decided that, hey, maybe it's time for a change.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there's so many people out there that think the same things. And you're right, it does take a leap of faith and a lot of planning and, hoping things are going to go the way you hope they will. And I'm glad that you're able to make that transition. I was talking to somebody about Thailand recently, and speaking of like maybe you didn't think it was possible, my friend said, "Oh, I've researched it, and it I've read that it costs 5 grand to go to Thailand for a couple of weeks." And I had to quickly dispel his fears and his thoughts about that. How much was it when you went to Thailand roughly initially, and how much would you say it costs for 1 month in Thailand?
For 1 month.
Yeah,
So I would answer that question very differently depending on who's asking it and ultimately what kind of lifestyle they want to have. I mean, the answer can wildly be different. So the reason I say that, when I first came to Thailand, I wanted to do everything. I went on tours. I wanted to see everything. To give you maybe a sense of this, like a guided tour per day, you can spend anywhere from 20 to a couple hundred US dollars, depending on, do you want to do it on a long tail boat? Do you want to do a speedboat? How do you want to do this tour? Do you want it to be private, public? So you have that aspect of it. But if you live as a local, and if you kind of go off the beaten path and you find a long term rental, for example, you could probably live off $1,000 a month, depending on, again, what kind of lifestyle you want to do. If you're not doing much, like if you're not doing all these tours or traveling within the country, you can live very modestly. But if you want to live kind of more an extravagant lifestyle, then you can pay. But I mean, cost of living wise, compared to Canada, for example, it's night and day. I would say your money goes about 3 times as far in Thailand, so it's a lot more affordable uh, for what I'm used to.
yeah. I had to explain to him about the cost of airfare. Of course, you can go as fancy as you
Yeah,
want with airfare. Maybe that's gonna add up to 5 grand. But yeah, there's really I think Thailand has such a wide range of quality that you can go for. And so
yeah,
it makes a difference what you're thinking about doing when you get there.
exactly. Yeah.
What was it about Thailand that you connected so much with?
I think it's the people. I've never met such friendly people. Canadians are, I think, notorious for being quite polite and friendly, but to me, it's insane how everyone just seems so nice. I have done so many stupid things here. I've left my phone on my bike. I've left my wallet in hotel rooms. I've always gotten it back. People have always been, we were talking off air about a motorcycle accident I was just involved in, and probably 10 people stopped and got me water, got me disinfectant wipes and things like that. And, I don't see that a lot of other places. Certainly not in Canada. I think a lot of people kind of look out for themselves. So that's the main thing. But it's also an extremely beautiful country as well, very scenic, a lot of really nice things to go and explore and adventure.
Yeah, I know Thailand also has in the right places some of the best medical care in the world,
Yep.
actually, at
Yeah,
affordable
I
prices.
yeah, I had to I've been in a hospital here and I've felt the quality of care has been extremely high. So,
Yeah. And you were saying you love the people the most.
yeah.
How do you feel? So, how long have you been in Thailand now? How long have you been living there?
Yeah, so I've been on and off here for the past, I guess it's been 4 years now. So I usually spend around 6 months and then I miss my friends and family. So I go back and visit for a little while. But yeah, I probably spent 2.5 years total, maybe in Thailand, uh, that I've actually been living here.
Okay. Have you been mostly in Bangkok or have you moved around a bit, Chiang Mai?
So I've been to a lot of places in Thailand, but I currently live in Ao Nang, which is in Krabi, which is in the south of Thailand. I actually just got back from Phuket today. If you love the beach like I do, the islands here are absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I that's actually an interesting location. We don't hear that one very much, but Krabi, I'm familiar with, and there's a lot of islands around there. So
Yeah.
yeah. But to go back to the people, so I've interviewed a
Yes.
few people about Thailand on this podcast, and we will link below. And some people have said it's hard to connect and really feel like you fit into the society, even though people are very nice. Do you feel the longer you've been there that you are meeting locals and you feel comfortable for the long term in Thailand as part of the society?
That's a very interesting question, and I think it's something that I don't think it's necessarily unique to Thailand. I think that's part of being a digital nomad in a nutshell. I think I hear people say that really about anywhere, but the not speaking the language fluently is definitely difficult. I think that's a big reason on how you can connect with people. Communication is so important. So yeah, it's definitely difficult. And I mean, not having a job or a workplace to go into, again, that's something with the digital nomad lifestyle that you have to be, I think, comfortable. So yeah, there's certainly challenges. Honestly, most of the people I tend to connect with do tend to be tourists. And I think that's partly because of of language. But most importantly, I think it's about making an effort. If you really want to meet people, you can go out and meet people. And I think it's just being out in the community and doing various things. Um, so yeah, it is difficult though. I would say that's probably one of the biggest challenges of being a digital nomad for sure.
Yeah, of course, this is across society, but in Thailand, if you're moving around, I know Chiang Mai, I've also talked with people about Chiang Mai. There is a big community of expats and digital nomads. What you mentioned, like getting out there, what kind of activities and things do you do currently where you are in Thailand to connect with people? And are your friends, have you found like expat friends in that area?
Yeah, so probably my favorite thing to do to meet people is actually go on like day tours because then it's almost like having a captive audience for a day and you get to learn about that individual and they're usually happy because it's they're usually on vacation, so you can really get some really interesting conversations. So that's probably the biggest thing. But I mean, just doing the day-to-day stuff, I live in this condo, so I've met obviously the staff at here. Those are kind of the local connections that I haven't just going to the same stores, just doing my day to day things every day and just chatting with people and making conversation. But the biggest thing I would do is like actually go out on tours and do activities. And then secondly, try and find like a consistent place to go and do things, whether that's groceries or if there's a gym or a sport or something, you see the same people. So it's just about making conversation with those people that you see.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Like day tours, there's so many interesting people coming to Thailand and visiting. But
Yeah.
are the people on the day tours, do you normally just see them for a couple of days? I feel like they are a lot of them just pass through, or do you have you run into people that are kind of doing what you're doing, going on day tours in that area, but you live there and you've been able to see them more often?
Yeah, so I mean, most people they're transient. I've met some great connections, and I mean, typically, I feel like I resonate a little bit more probably with males, being a male myself. Um, but I've met people of all ages and all different walks of life, and that's really, I think, a really cool thing. Um, but yeah, I stay in touch with them. But for example, I met a guy from the Netherlands named Felix, and he just sent me a Snapchat today, and I think he might be in Laos right now, type of thing. So you stay in touch with people, you make these great connections, but a lot of times you may not see them ever again. So uh, that's sometimes difficult to make those long lasting connections as well.
Yeah, I know. We all face this as digital nomads.
Yeah.
So I know that you have written a Thailand guide. Can you tell us more about that?
So it's a website. It's a digital nomad visa guide essentially. So it's how to work and live abroad. So what you do is you go to this website. It gives you a bunch of prompts, your personal information, your preferences. So for example, I'll use myself. I'm 40 years old. I'm a Canadian citizen. I work in the software industry and I have a bachelor's degree. So I input all that information, and then it's an AI powered recommendation built on a database that we've built. And it will basically tell you what your best option is, what your most likely way to get either a digital nomad visa, temporary residency, or like a work exchange program. So this is something that 4 years ago I wish I had, because I felt it's scary to basically pick up your life and move to a different country and have no friends like we've talked about. So I kind of wanted to make it easier for people to be able to do that, because there's so many different ways you can work and live abroad, but I think people just don't know all the options that are available. Just an example, Thailand has at least like 10 different visa programs. There's retirement visas, there's education visas, there's cultural visas. So you could do like Thai cooking courses, you can do Muay Thai, you can be an English teacher. There's so many different ways that you can come and live to different countries. So yeah, that's what I do. It's not live yet. Hopefully, I'm doing some final testing. Hopefully, within a week or two, the website will be live. Um, but yeah,
Great. So this, just so I understand, this is beyond Thailand. This is covering a lot of different
yes,
countries.
yes, yeah. Because there's new programs. There's programs, unfortunately, that get scrapped. I mean, I'm not going to get into a geopolitical conversation, but there's a lot going on in the world too. So, your nationality and your citizenship has a big role in that, in terms of where you can go and how long you can go there for. There's so many different factors.
In your research, I know we've talked a lot about Thailand. Are there,
Yeah,
let's say, two or three other countries that have emerged when you've been putting this together that you would say, take a look at these guys, these are good options and it's not so
absolutely.
difficult?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, being a Canadian, we're part of the Commonwealth. So a country like Australia has a lot of programs. They have a point system. So you can go to their immigration website. You basically do this questionnaire, and it will tell you how many points you have. And if you qualify, it's like 99% you're going to be able to move there. And the requirements are very reasonable. So Australia, either them or New Zealand, just started a new digital nomad visa that is like the easiest I've seen to qualify for. But there's so many countries. Portugal is another big one. Georgia. is also one that's coming up as well. So those are the ones that kind of stick out. But like I said, there's so many different countries that have so many different programs.
Indeed, and things are changing all the time. And I know we're
Yep.
not going to talk about geopolitics, but that is
Yeah.
also changing all the time. So,
Yep.
do you plan on? I don't know if AI is going to be able to help you just keep this up to date.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's ultimately how it's powered is through AI. That's actually part of the reason it's delayed because it's very important for me to make sure it's accurate. Um, and unfortunately, at this exact moment, it's not where it needs to be, in my opinion. If it's not accurate, it doesn't have a ton of value. So yeah, but it's powered by AI being able to search, various government websites and agencies to give those recommendations is very important. So AI has been an incredible part of my business.
Okay, that's really great to hear, and I really look forward to this going live. Where can people find it once it does go live?
Yeah, so the website's called mydigitalnomadguide.com. So the site, if you go to it right now, it will just say coming soon, maintenance mode, and it's your personalized guide to living and working abroad. So yeah, I'm really hoping, you know, for sure by the start of May, if it's not ready, I'll be pretty sad because initially I was planning to have it go live in March, but just with some testing and some other things, it's been pushed back. But we're in the final stages of testing, so I'm very excited that it
Yes,
should be live right away.
digital nomads should get excited because I know a lot of people, even if they get a visa for one country, they start thinking about the
Yeah,
next country because that's just our nature is to move, right?
yeah. I mean, yeah. That's. I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Like, where's next? As much as I love Thailand, like there's so much more of the world I want to explore as well. So, I mean, selfishly, I kind of built this platform for myself as well. Um, but yeah, 100%, 100% thinking about where's next.
All right. Well, to get back to that original idea of leaving the 9 to 5, which is going to help people use this site and start to find their
Yeah.
first country, with all the AI coming online, do you still think it's good advice when people are losing their jobs to AI and all of these things? I know it's a tough job market out there, and sometimes even tougher to find remote jobs. Do you think it's still a good idea to tell people to leave the 9 to 5?
I think more than ever, and I'll just use myself as an example. I mean, I had a kind of bitter taste in my mouth when I lost my job. And so it's very anyone who's gone through a job loss, I'm sure can relate. It's awful. It's very stressful. Sometimes you might feel like inadequate in some regards. So for me, I think it's more important than ever because this allows for me starting my own business allows me to make sure that I don't have to stress about losing a job. Now, having said that, it's very important that you have a plan. You execute on it. I don't think you should just quit your job without a plan, certainly. But I think if you have a vision, you have a goal, then absolutely. I mean, for me, it's just getting that initial sense of freedom when I first started traveling is something I've never felt before. And that's the reason why I started this platform is because I want people to feel the way I felt when I first felt like, wow, I'm actually truly free. I can feel like I'm actually truly free for the first time in my life. I don't want to feel like I'm a slave to a job I don't like, to a company I don't care about. Not that I had much of that in my life, but it's just such a different feeling when you feel like you're forced to do something rather than create something on your own. So, yeah, I would say more than ever, I would say if you can do it, if you have an opportunity, I would certainly say you should because there is uncertainty, and if you can create something on your own that provides a reliable income, uh, absolutely.
Yeah, I will say, having met so many digital nomads out there, that really the sweetest spot is to make your own job and make your own
Yeah.
hours, because that will give you ultimately the most freedom. Because I imagine if you had moved to Thailand with the a job that you still had back in Canada, it would look very different for you in Thailand, and you might be up all night with, by yourself in your apartment. I've seen nomads like this, and so it is important to think about, okay, where do you want to go, and then what kind of job is going to be available for you. But making one would ultimately be the best, I think.
Yeah. And I actually did that. I was working from 9 p.m. till 5 in the morning every night, uh,
Yeah.
Monday through Friday. When I first moved to Thailand 4 years ago, I was employed at that time. And then, like I said, I unfortunately lost that lost that job, and that's where things changed. But it is doable, and people ask me, "Isn't that hard?" And I look at it as a trade off. I think you have to look at, why am I doing this, and if there's a bigger picture reason, then you have to sacrifice. You have to make some changes, but it is doable. I was able to do it for around a year, and it's tough. There's certainly nights where you don't feel great, but you think about, okay, what's the bigger picture? What's the main reason that I'm doing this? And then it makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, and I think we haven't talked about this yet. We've talked a bit about the cost of living, but it does feel better if you've lost your job, that you've already moved to a place that is much cheaper, so that you can get by until you find that next job. People maybe don't think about how important that might be when they're in a job search.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of value. I don't know. I can't speak to other countries, but at least, in Canada, I mean, you do lose some benefits too with like employment insurance. So that's something that's very important to consider as well. So again, you have to properly plan for it. Otherwise, there could be some very unwelcome surprises. So yes, in on the one side, there's pros with the affordability, but then you have to consider some of the other things that probably a lot of people don't think about. That just by being a citizen of a country, you have certain benefits. And I know it's not like that in every country, but at least in Canada, if you lose your job due to a layoff, you get benefits to at least ease the transition so that you at least get some form of income.
Yeah. I guess that's also making up for how expensive it might be in Canada or some countries compared to other places. But
Yeah,
I do think having a guide like you have built will allow people to see all of their options, whether they lose a job while they're already a nomad or they are thinking about finally leaving the 9 to 5. Because as my friend who was asking about $5,000, is that
yeah,
really what it costs to go to Thailand? There's just so many people that they're not aware of all the options out there, and there really are so many
exactly.
options.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm excited for you to launch this platform and hope that people see that they're, if you're stuck somewhere, if you don't want to be doing the job you're doing, you're looking for a new job, yeah, maybe start looking around the world for it instead.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, Lee, is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we go?
Yeah, I guess just the final thought. Like if you feel like you're stuck in a rut, and you feel like you don't really have something that you feel a lot of joy or accomplishments, there's other ways to do it. And for me, it came through travel. Uh, Sometimes you go on a journey, not sure what you're looking for, and you find yourself, which was the case, for me. And so yeah, so traveling really expanded my perspective on life, and I'm really happy I did it. So that would be the biggest thing. Like if you feel like you're stuck in something, just know that there's a lot of options out there. You just have to go looking for it. And we live in a world where there's tons of information. There's sites like like you guys have, and there's Facebook groups, there's social media groups where people are willing to share advice. So we live in an information age. You don't you can go anywhere. You don't have to pay thousands of dollars for that. You can usually find really good advice for free. So just know what you're looking for and go out and find it.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us today, Lee. And is there any other place people can follow you besides Digital Nomad Guide?
Yeah, so I have some social media channels. They're very much in the infancy. I haven't even posted, but yeah, my digital nomad guide basically on all socials. You'll find me. So whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, some of these channels I don't even have any content yet, but it's coming with the launch of the site. So yeah, my digital nomad guide on all socials should be able to find me.
All right. So if you're listening or you're watching this, we're going to have all the links below and in Spotify. So please take a look for that because it's going to be a very helpful guide, I'm sure, when it launches.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. Have a great day.